Here's how to interject. First of all, what is interjecting? Interjecting is when a prospect is rambling, so you say words or you say stuff to get the conversation back on track. So there's a difference between interruption and interjection, depending on each person's definition. How we define it is interruption is when you abruptly just say like, oh, anyways, in a way that it seems like the other person is being felt cut off. Interjection is you're coming in to get the conversation back on track as an expert, but the other person doesn't feel much as if they're being cut off. Huge difference there. So why do we want to interject? Why not just let them talk? Isn't that just good for the conversation? Doesn't that mean you're a good conversationalist? In general sense, yes, but in a sales conversation, if you let the prospect ramble about things that are not moving the conversation towards a sale, it's just not productive. Because what's going to happen is the call is going to go longer, which means that you have less time for objection handling or time to call and sell other leads. And also, it adds more information to the conversation because the more you let them ramble, they're going to talk about more things, which means that they have more unit of information they have to process. So at the end, you're more likely to get, yeah, listen, you've given me too much to think about, so let me just kind of get back to it. I know I have a lot to process. You're triggering your own think about it objections. And also, they start talking about a problem, for example. They keep rambling. You don't interject and probe, and you miss opportunities to build more pain. They're talking themselves out of the pain. So that like our urgency, and they hit you with, let me think about it, let me talk some partner objections, which means that you're most likely to lose sales, which is no bueno. So when do we want to interject? When's the right time and when's the not right time? So there's two types of rambling. Here's how I define it: is there's pre-rambling and there's post-rambling. And this is a study I did on my own because I realized I was letting prospects ramble. I was just getting a lot of think about objections. I'm like, when do I go in? So I kind of broke it down to two. Pre-rambling is when a prospect, you ask them a question, and instead of answering the question, they just ramble about stuff that's not answering the question. You ever have that happen? And the other part is post-rambling, which is they answer your question and they keep rambling. Okay? Post-rambling is actually quite easy because as soon as you get an answer that's good enough, you move right into the next question. Because when you do that, you cannot get a ramble because you already went to the next question. And if you do this with each time, now you're training them on how to answer the question. And that's what we want. We want to coach them on how to talk. That's what we want. So just like Pavlov's dog, right? If we look back, Pavlov's dog, where they had a dog, and then what the scientist did was whenever he had the dog food, he rang a bell, right? So the dogs knew, they were conditioned that whenever the bell rang, the food was there. Same thing here, right? We want them to answer the question instead of rambling, and you want to do that pretty much the start of the call. Okay. And how you do this is the pre-work, which is you want to do something called back channeling. So back channeling is as the other person's talking, instead of just sitting there like this and be like, okay, so, and then asking the next question, which a lot of salespeople do. Now it feels like an interview. It just doesn't seem like a regular conversation because typically what happens when you're talking to your friends, or how normal people talk, is let's say your friend's talking. They're telling a story, right? They went on a date or they went to this concert. And then instead of just sitting there like this, like most salespeople do, they're like, oh, okay, really? No, that happened? Crazy. So I'm obviously over exaggerating here, but you want to do these things not every 2 seconds because that gets annoying, but every like 7 to 8 seconds, right? Something I learned from Jeremy is you want to, as they're talking there, be like, okay, right, yeah, okay, those things. Obviously, I did it shorter because I'm trying to give an example, but yeah, you want to do this every like 7 to 8 seconds or so, because number one, they see that you're engaged in the conversation, you're listening, and second, it makes your interjection a lot smoother. Because if you're already talking, then it's a lot easier to go in with the interjection as opposed to you sit quiet the whole time and then you try to go interject. Then now it seems a lot more abrupt. They feel like they're being cut off, right? So post rambling, they're talking. You're already doing the okay. Oh, how long has that been going on for? Oh, is the back channel, right? Oh, right, things like that. This is from linguistics. And then you bridge right into the next question, right? So back channeling, question. Oh, how long has that been going on? Oh, how long have you been doing that? Oh, well, is it working? Boom. That's post rambling. Pretty simple. So pre-rambling is this. So they're talking about, you ask them a question, they're not really answering the question, they're just rambling. Don't cut them off right away because they may eventually get to an answer. But let them talk for maybe like a sentence or two, right? Let them talk for a little bit. But if they're not answering the question, that's when you interject. Okay, and the tactics of it, we'll get to it. Here's what to do to interject. Common mistakes, what not to do is taking too long between the interjecting and asking the next question. So I'll give you an example. If your next question you make it too long, then it's gonna seem like you're just cutting them off. For example, they're talking and you're like, okay, so you said you've been a chef for like 10 years. So like tell me about that. Like how long you been a chef for? That's a very long question. As opposed to just saying like, oh, how long you been a chef for? Oh, how long? Then it seems like you're just like listening, right? Oh, look, tell me more about that. So it's simple. And another thing, as I was listening to a call the other day, and this one person was like, prospect is talking, and the salesperson's like, okay, but and yeah, it seems like such a abrupt. It's like the other person's like, what the fuck, right? So you want to avoid those. Okay. In terms of words, less words the better, which makes it come off less abrupt. And in your sub communication, meaning your tonality, facial expression, body language, you want to come off more curious or concerned depending on the context. So if they're talking about something neutral, right? If they're saying like, oh yeah, like I want to make more money. Oh, what are you doing for a living now? It's more curious, right? It's like, oh, how long? Oh, why that? Curious. If they're talking about a problem, then you can go more concerned, right? So if they're talking about like, yeah, I've been paycheck to paycheck. Paycheck to paycheck? What's going on? Paycheck to paycheck? Simple as that, right? You're not saying like, well, what do you mean by paycheck to paycheck? You can ask it that way, but less words the better, especially in an interjection. So let's go into the exact tactics, how to interject. Let's talk about post ramble first. Okay. First, step number one, back channel. Oh, okay. Things like that. And then you either probe or bridge right into the next question. Okay. So probing is literally if they say paycheck to paycheck. Paycheck to paycheck? Oh, what do you mean? And they'll talk about that thing. Okay. So you can literally, you don't even ask all the questions on the script. You can either just back channeling and probing all the way to the sale. You could do it that way. That's more advanced though, but if you wanted to, you could, right? Just by saying like, oh, what do you mean? Paycheck to paycheck? Oh, how long? Just things like that. But, or you can just bridge into the next question. Okay. So if it's saying like, yeah, I just haven't been losing that much weight. Oh, how long has that been going on? So as soon as you get the answer that's good enough, you move right into it. So the pre-work is also important, right? Because not only do you want to have the back channeling going the whole time, like every 8 seconds or so, like, okay. But also you want to understand exactly what answers you need to get from each question. Okay. So you need to understand what answers you're trying to get from each question, because if you don't know what answers you're trying to get, then you just let them ramble because is this good enough or not? You just don't know, you're lost, which is why you need to do the study. Go back to the overall sales conversation structure process overview, that training. It'll be in the skill set section. Go through that. You'll get a better understanding. If you still don't understand, write it down on a Google Doc for what you sell, for your offer, what types of answers you're trying to get. And if you have questions, you can post in the community tab or bring it to the one of the coaching calls. But you got to understand that. Okay, in your brain, so it's got to, you're listening, you're engaged in the conversation, you're present in the conversation. At the same time, your brain's computing. Does this fit the answers I'm looking for? Yes or no? Your brain's a computer, okay? So the first question, let's say you sell BizOp, you're helping people start a business and make more money. Then when you ask them, well, you don't know what you're looking for when it comes to when you want out of a business. And the answers you want there is make more money, have more time, or both. Those are the typical answers you want. And if they say something like, oh, like it's I see a lot of people just having a cool business, so that would be kind of cool. That's not the answers you get, right? You need to scam on something more tangible. So be like, oh, like for what I mean, oh no, for example, then you can probe into it, which is, oh, so like I guess what kind of outcome you're trying to get out of it. Like some probing questions, some clarifying questions, depending on context, and then you get the answer you need to get. Okay. Now let's talk about pre-rambling, meaning that you ask them a question, they don't answer. How do you go about it? So the back channeling is the same. So you let them talk. There's different ways of going about it, but typically step number one is back channel. It's like, oh. Step number two is you want to acknowledge. So you can either apologize or acknowledge, meaning that, oh, I apologize. What I meant was, and then you rephrase the question. What kind of outcome are you trying to get from starting a business? So how it sounds like in real time is like you let them talk. It's like, oh, I apologize. What I meant was, what kind of outcome are you trying to get from what you want out of a business? As an example. So it's like, oh, my fault. What I meant was. So what that does is the other person's they start to think, oh, I didn't answer the question that he was trying to ask. That's kind of my fault, but this person's saying it's their fault. So they don't feel bad that they're being cut off, right? They're like, oh, let me clarify. Then they answer it that way. Okay. Also, you can just also acknowledge it, right? Oh, yeah, let's circle back to that because that's also important for sure. What I meant was, boom, question, right? So you can do it that way as well. So when you do the, oh, what that does is it's a softener because there's different back channels you could do. You can just do okay. But when you do, when you do that, as you're doing the, they start to stop talking or slow down, which gives you a room to actually go in. So it's pretty powerful. Oh, and they start talking. What I meant was, and also when you interject, just go interject. What typically mistakes people make is like they'll interject. Oh, what I meant was, and the other person's still talking, and then the salesperson stops. They stop talking, so the prospect keeps going on, or it's like an awkward tango dance. Like which way should I go? It's just awkward or not productive. When you're interjecting, just go in like a bulldozer. Because when you do is that when you just go in like a bulldozer, they'll stop talking as you say more words. And then you start to condition them on how to talk and how to answer the question. Right? Oh, what I meant was, and you just go in with the question. Okay. Also, you can do is this. You can kind of blame it on the mic, on the audio setting. So, for example, if they keep rambling, right, and then you interject and they're still talking, you can be like, "Hey, Jake, you there? Oh yeah, I don't know. It's like audio. I think there's a bit of a lag. Yeah, so you know, what kind of outcome are you hoping to get out of it? You can kind of do it that way as well. Oh, my bad. I think the audio is kind of jumpy. So how long has it been going on? 2 years. Oh, okay. You can kind of do it that way. So there's different things you can do, but what's important is that you want to keep the call concise. Make sure that they're answering the questions. You're getting the answers you need to get. All right, go implement it on your next calls. Let us know how it goes in the community. Let us know if you get questions.